Hey, what's up, guys? So this is Alex again. So I made a previous video on me figuring out pneumatic spear guns and how to take them apart and all that kind of thing. I mentioned in that video the idea of I was waiting on my O-ring kit, so I was waiting for those to arrive, and I said when I did, I'd figure out, try to put them in. And actually, doing that process, I realized I think it would be helpful to make another video just to show that whole process and some of the things I picked up on while I was doing it. I have the advantage, so I mentioned in that previous video, I have the advantage that I got a bunch of used pneumatic guns. So I got 4 total for 30 bucks off some guy locally here. And that just gave me the options. I had this real small one, and I just used that to figure it out because this is too small for me. Even a couple of ones I put together here, you can see them in the back. So this is a Californian. This is a Californian, and then this is another older model. I think they're both like 85s, but they're both all fixed and working now. So I just wanted to walk you through that process of how I fixed these. I have one other Cyrano 1100 that I'm still working on that I haven't put together yet. But these two are working good, and so I just want to walk you through using this my little tester over there. My little tester right here. I'm just going to walk you through that process fast and then let you know how it works. So another thing to think about, so what I did is when I did online research, I found a manual that basically for this Sten, or also known as the Californian, they're all, I think there's multiple years, and they're all pretty much exactly the same. And so I found this manual online, and I'll put the link down below the video, but it basically shows the outline of the gun and where the parts are, and then the different parts here. And I highlighted them in green and made myself some notes. I did this on the computer. I printed this one out just so I could show you guys kind of my process. And the reason why I did that is because when you get the kit, it comes in a little, right, it comes from Mars. I'm dealing specifically with Mars pneumatic guns. So it comes in a kit like that. And inside it has most of the O-rings you're going to need. There's one that's actually not in there. But I was fortunate that Sublove, the group that I ordered these through in Europe, they actually included the other, it's not a washer, I'll show you here in a second, but it's another rubber piece that gets, these guns are 20, 30 years old that you're going to want to replace when you do this whole O-ring identification and replacement process. So within the little bag that I was telling you, the O-ring kit, it's going to have this, and it's going to basically tell you everything that's in that kit except for this, which I'll talk about. This is part of the piston. So you can see here again, I've made some notes for myself just to remind me of where they are, because like I said, so the numbers here below these O-rings, they correspond to the numbers here for the different parts, and then they show you in the image which ones those are. So basically what I did is I looked at the numbers, I matched all the O-rings up with things on here, I looked at the numbers, I figured out, I opened up the gun, my tester gun, and I figured out what went where, right? And so it's going to be super key that you have, at least for me, you have these 2 documents with you so you can figure out what to do. So again, like I said, what I did is once I had this, I had all my different O-rings and I kind of matched them up to whichever ones they were, right? So that's the whole thing on the O-rings. I just, there's going to be some when you go through the process and you look at where they are, they're super obvious, and then others not so much. And so I think that's where it'll be helpful for me to kind of just talk about some of the things I figured out. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to mention that I've noticed a lot of people talking about. I've seen comments like, oh, you can't ever fire the gun out of water, and what are you doing? So I'm a little surprised because, first of all, if you have a power adjuster, you can just put it in lower power mode. And then what you do is you just put it in, I do it out in my grass in the back, and I just put some weight on it, and I fire it, and it slides right out. So you're not impacting anything. And so if you need to unload your gun, you can do it into the grass, no big deal. Again, so here you take out the little knob from the back, right, that comes out. I had also spoken about the last time about finding a tool to be able to unscrew the metal part back here. And what I ended up doing, so this is, a wood carver, and what I ended up doing is I just ground down the end. So now I have it just so happens that the diameter of this just fits in there perfectly. And so I just ground it down so I don't have any tight points on it, and it works really good, right? So let's say I had my loaded gun, it was in good shape, and I'm like, hey, it's time to change my O-rings. Then first you hit that little ball valve in the back, and you let the air out, it'll come out, There you go. Okay. So now all of your air is out of your gun. So what I would do next is remove this, the end here. It's going to be a lot harder, obviously, the first time you do it. Again, this is my tester gun, so everything is going to come apart really easy. The O-rings aren't even the original O-rings, or some of them are the old ones. Some of them are. I originally tried to go to like a Home Depot or Hardware Hawaii that we have here and get O-rings that would fit, and that didn't work. And it's been a process for me, right? And now I got the kit, and that really obviously changed the game, because then when I put everything together, it fit nice and tight and held air. So again, so here you take off that tip, right? That's how you first get it. And then you can pull this. Obviously, again, this is way easier on mine, so you're going to pull that out. Then you're going to use your tool there, however you want to make to unscrew the screw out of the back. Oh, keep doing this. So you want to take out you first want to take out your trigger here. So so here's your trigger. Again, this trigger it's loose. It's one of my testers, right, when I was messing around. So you get in here, you push that pin out. You're going to, usually what I had to do in the very beginning, this one's been going, I would have to tap it, but not too much. It comes out relatively easy. So once you do that, you get your pin, take that out. Then your trigger comes right on out there. And your safety might come out as well. So there you've got your trigger, your pin, and your safety there. Put that somewhere safe. So now I've got that. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish unscrewing this. Now when I think about, I always do these videos, and I'm like, I usually do the pin first. Now that I think about it, I don't really know how much it matters. I just know that, like, if you have that pin in there still and you're trying to pull stuff out, you could kind of wreck some of the plastic that's inside this handle. Like if the pin's sticking up and you're like, why isn't it coming out? And I say this from experience, just because that's what I did on the first time, because I'm not always just thinking ahead. I get excited and I start jamming ahead, and I shouldn't yet. And so I think it's just a good idea to get the pin and the trigger out as your very first step. And once you do that, right, there you go. You got your cylinder, empty cylinder. It's going to go down here next to me. And now you also have this, and this should just come out. Now that you've taken that trigger pin out, it should just work on out. This one is a little bit harder to come out because of some of the issues that I did when I was playing around and trying to test things out. So I won't bore you with some of the details I went. But basically there you have your parts, right? And so you've got your handle, you've got your shaft here, you've got your end, and you've got your cylinder, and then your screw here. So again, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take out this trigger mechanism. And I talk about this in the previous video, so you can just go check that out. I'm not like a YouTuber or anything like that. I'm just making videos that might be handy, right? So quality of production is not my priority. It's just getting this out to you guys. That hopefully some people are doing this and it'll help. Again, I'm not too worried about damaging this because I'm not ever going to use this gun, and so I didn't pound on it like this with my other ones. It's just to get things done. So like right now, I'm going to pound that pin out for the trigger here. So this one is really jammed, so it's not really a good indicator of how hard it is to get in and out. Basically, you take that pin out, get your trigger mechanism that also has, so you have this is the pin I just pulled and the little trigger mechanism. I show it a little bit more up close in the other video if you want to check that out, but just know that you're going to take that out by removing the pin. And then there's actually the piston is inside of here, so you need to push that piston out. So that piston actually keeps that trigger mechanism locked in place. And so now I'm just going to push that piston out. This is the shaft. I'm using the screw, the side with the thread on it to push out that piston that then flies down the shaft there. And obviously none of this has oil on it, right? Because I've been dealing with it. I took all the oil off when I was learning the mechanism. So obviously if you were doing this, yours would be full of oil, so glove up for sure. And then we talk about, so now we've talked about the different O-rings. And so there's these three large O-rings right here. You're going to have, one goes right around here, right around the block. I'm calling it the block, this thing right here. And so you have one ring that goes there. Then you're going to have another ring that goes here on the handle. And then you're going to have another ring that goes here on the end, right there. And so that's the one that caps off. So those are your three big ones that are important to have, kind of for sealing the entire thing. But you have some other really important ones as well. And so, let's see what we got here. So we have one that came in this kit. It's for it's actually listed as being for like the safety mechanism, but on mine, so I think some of the other ones had like this a swivel safety mechanism. Mine doesn't have it, so there's actually an O-ring in there that was not needed at all. Then you have so you're gonna have this O-ring right here. There's gonna be one to replace that. Then you're gonna actually be able to unscrew this. Let me see if I have it loose. So you're gonna be able to unscrew this. Pull that out. So that comes out, right? You can just take that out. If you want to just take it out like that, you could. Don't lose anything, obviously. So that screws right out. And underneath this, underneath here, there's another O-ring right in there. So that's where you're going to have another O-ring in there. So again, I'm just showing you all the different O-rings. I think it's super useful to know where they are. Another super important O-ring, and this is kind of, I think, one of the trickier ones, is so your trigger has a pin. It's this one right here. So what happens is you got your trigger right here. It's up in there, and it pushes this pin. So this small pin you can see right here. That pin actually rides up into the handle, and what that does is it pushes the locking mechanism up like that. So then it pushes that up. This, you know, the fulcrum right there goes out, and this lets the piston shoot out the shaft. And so there's an O-ring around this. And what you're going to see is, I don't have it on that one, but I'll show you on this other one. So it's basically there's a hole right here. And there's one on the other side as well. And so it's just a plastic thing that when it's a clip basically, and when you push those two holes in simultaneously, you can then lift it out. And underneath that is the O-ring that goes around the pin. And I did notice that, so there was one for the pin, but they give you a double. They give you a double of one of the other O-rings. And that other O-ring, what I found is on this older model, actually when you take out the trigger, rather than having that piece with the hole that you would squeeze out, this one actually had a screw. So I just unscrewed it, and there was the O-ring. And it was a little bit fatter. The pin was actually this size. This size. So you can see that's quite a bit fatter than the other one I was showing you, which is that size. So I think they don't say it in the manual or anything like that, but the reason why I think they give you one of the extra O-rings of the small ones is so that you can adjust for if you have a larger pin or a smaller pin. That's what I'm thinking, at least. You know, as you guys probably know, there's not a whole lot of information out there, and I found that worked. So in the end, I always had I had a couple leftover O-rings, right? And that's just the way it is. So another couple of O-rings is this one right here, and then this one right here. It is an O-ring, but this one is not on that little sheet. So this is the one I was mentioning earlier. It's not on here anywhere. But you know that's it. And when you take it off, this one's I just broke off. This is the old one. You know, it comes off. It's a pretty tight fit. What I did is I lubed it all on so that when I put the new one, you're like really squeezing it over there, right? And so then you get it back on. That's how you change the O-ring on there. And I think those are pretty much all the O-rings. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any. So I got the shaft and there's the one. There are actually a couple more. So there's one. This is on my gun. There's like a plastic piece right here. It's white, and I couldn't find it. Like when I was taking this apart, it must have broke because it was all old. And so don't mistake that's what actually goes here. And then so one of the O-rings is this one, and when you put the cap on, it just pushes that right up against and seals against it. And then another one is right here. So this little plastic piece comes right off. You take that off right there. And this is the O-ring. You can just slide it. You can either take it from here and slide it that way, which is probably the easiest. Yeah. And then the other one that I was telling you about, so it didn't come in the kit, but Sublove, the guys I got this kit from, they included it for me, and it's that little guy right there, right? And so this is actually the old one as well, so this one is no good anymore. This is in the block. And so this comes, this is right under here. So as I pull this out, this is actually, this goes like this. Right? And you can see that one's all crooked because this is the old one. But that's what goes in here. It goes in here, in this, the back end of this block right here. And that's what allows for the air differentiation when you're on the low versus the high setting for the power management right here, right? So that's going to allow the air to go between, because this is like this, and if you have it on high, it's including all the air that's in this chamber, whereas if you have it on low, it's only in this little tiny little chamber right here, and that's the O-ring, if you will. That's the valve that allows that to happen, combined with some of these other O-rings, but just so you know the mechanism behind it. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as O-rings and really putting it all together. So that's for the piston. So that was the one. That's the one on the piston. Oh, the other good one. Ha! So there's another O-ring in here behind your plastic, right? So you see that right there. You get that. You can screw that out. Underneath is a ball, a spring, and a ball valve. So this one's a little stuck. See? There's your spring, and there's your ball. And then underneath there's another little O-ring back in there in the back. And so there you go. And then you replace that. You know, lube all this stuff up, get your stuff all angled. I'm just not worrying about it, right? Because as I said before, this is not a real gun that I'm not planning on using. So at this point, it's for demonstration purposes only. Okay, and then when you're done with all that, right, you're just going to put it all back together. And that's going to be, you're putting your trigger mechanism. I'm actually not going to put the trigger mechanism in there just because this hole is all jammed up. So I'm just going to leave that part out. But, you know, you're going to want to line your stuff up. You're going to line that up. Screw in here. This one again is a little hard. You have to kind of jam it in there. Just because I damaged this one when I was testing, as I've said on multiple occasions. I have that advantage, so you know, hopefully that can help a lot of us, not just me. Save you the steps of having to dismantle everything and break shit to find out what works and what doesn't. So that's in. I'm going to do the trigger at the very end, so maybe you want to line up your... And again, this is going to be all oiled up and everything, right? So it's going to be a lot different. That in. Again, when you do this on your own, it's going to be way tighter. It's going to be real tight in there, so just bear that in mind when you do it. Again, you're going to want to stick this piston. If I had put that locking mechanism in that I admitted, which was this one again, you're going to want to do that and then stick this piston in and shove it in so it'll lock this in the up position. So then it'll allow you to do everything that I just did. If not, it sits down and it gets in the way. So just make sure you do that. Screw this back on. You know, I probably I've damaged this one so much just because I don't really care anymore because I'm using it for this modeling. That probably wasn't the best idea, but who cares at this point, right? That's all it's good for anymore. Anyway, what can I show you this? Look how small it is. Dude, it's like this would get some flounder down at the bottom or something. I shouldn't be able to get much. My trigger back in. Safety first. You know, so that's cool. It's cool to know that these pneumatic guns, they seem super complicated, but you know what? They're not that bad, and you can change the seals yourself. It doesn't, even make it sound like it's so hard, and it is. If I would have had a video like this, it would have helped a lot. And so hopefully, for those of you trying to figure out what to do and you find it old, I know these things are still out there. So if you find them, man, don't let them go to waste. And you get your pressure. Put your pressure back up. Get it. There's online manuals that tell you that's pretty easy to find as far as how much psi, and you can get some of the gauges that the pressure gauges that you screw into the back here, and it'll tell you how much pressure you actually have in the gun. Right. A couple other things that I can think about that I wasn't really too sure about, but was able to figure out, is that with this oil, this fork oil stuff that I've been using, that I saw recommended, you can pour it in here. And I had assumed maybe this was the case, but now I'm able to confirm that you can actually, with this type of pump, I don't really know your gun or what you're using, but this one, you know, what I found is the easiest thing to do is I just put some of that in there. I suck a bunch of it up, and then I lay the pump on its side when I screw it into the back of the gun. So it's not pouring everywhere. If you try to do it with a gun, you know, point it down or up, the oil will just flow out, right? And so, yeah, I just keep it on its side. That way, the oil is kind of just staying level up in there while and then I just pump it in like that. All right, let's see. So I told you about that. I told you about the locations of the O-ring, the other, yeah. And you know, and then what we have now is, you know, then I was able to, you know, obviously this comes on my wrist when I go out with it. I was able to get some, you know, I forget what kind of pound test this is, but I made my thing, and you know, got your cap. Then the guns. This is the older one. I actually like this one's a little bit older than the other one, I believe, and I actually like this one better. Shaft's a little bit longer, and yeah, I don't know. I just like it better, maybe because it's more like vintage or something. But all right, so I hope that helps. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments, and I'll try to put the links in the bottom for anything that I can find useful, including the number of the kit that I've used for the Californian and the one I used for that I ordered for the Cyrano that I haven't installed yet. And I'll try to put a link to the design. And that little manual that I found has it for not only for the Sten or the Californian, but also for the Cyrano and a couple of the others. So you can that'll hopefully work for you guys if you have different model guns. I think that's it. All right, man. Take care.